Hmm. Well, hello. If anyone can hear us. Tonight I have...
Tonight, Matthew.
Yeah, that was good. This is an old Band-Aid tin that I think it was some of my grandfather's old stuff, and he saw fit to use the old Band-Aid tin to store Stanley blades, which is there's a weird kind of sense in that, which I rather enjoy. It just, you know, if you're not going to store plasters in it, what's the next thing you'd expect to find? And something associated with sharpness and cutting yourself. So I guess there's some logic of, you know, you're looking for a Stanley blade. It's either going to be near the sharp things or something associated with the sharp things. In this case, an old-fashioned Band-Aid tin. So there's subtleties in this which are interesting. I'm going to keep it really plain, but there's differences in the whites of you know, between here and here and here and the background. I could use an accent light, but on this occasion I don't think I will. I think I'll just keep it simple.
Go rogue.
Huh?
Go rogue.
Yeah, exactly. Maverick renegade that I am. I'm going to...
You're all on the edge of your seats.
Yeah.
Waiting for tonight.
Yeah. So there's still quite a bit of light. I've still got one of the blinds open. There's quite a bit of light in the studio, but that's okay. I'll work with that. And I think I might... Oh, got my mixing white. That's good.
Yeah, it'd be quite interesting this evening because there is a lot of white that's surrounding everything, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'm going to have the mixing white out. And I need subtle changes from one white to another, which could be quite fun. There you are. Mixing white is especially dense, so squeezing one of these out will give you carpal tunnel. Right. First.
So is it quite a challenge to have a painting which is sort of predominantly one colour?
Well, yeah, in the sense that you've got different... Yeah. Well, yes and no. I mean, sometimes you can use the same colour for two things which appear the same, and you get lost edges between them. Mm-hmm. So you could do this that way. In fact, it will probably end up appearing that way a little bit. But the edges of the red and the blue stripes will tell us where the edge of this is, and then there's the little dark line at the base. So your mind will fill in the gaps. There's a few sort of famous little illusions that work like that. So here, I'll do one for you. What shape is that?
Yeah, that's triangle, isn't it?
You see a triangle, you join it up. It's sort of so obvious and you know, facile almost that you go, well, yeah, well, what of it? But actually, you can use that all the time. You know, if I were to draw a triangle, I'd feel compelled to do this entire line. But that's all you need, and then your viewer will finish it off for you, which I think is quite fun.
I suppose 3 dots wouldn't do the same thing, would it? Because you need the connecting lines.
In a sense, they would, because we look for that kind of thing. So if they're in a particular order, you will arrange them in a dot to dot. By the time you get to something like an octagon, well, actually, no, an octagon is probably more. Maybe a pentagon, you might start to lose track. But even then, your brain looks for pattern and symmetry and those sorts of things. So yeah.
So as a kind of as humans, are we predisposed to continually do this? Do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I'm going to change it. Sorry. I had to.
Oh,
I know. I'll just
that's all right. That's all
back
right. If you keep it, because I can sort of.
That's okay,
Oh,
isn't
yeah,
it?
there we go. Oh, that's not so bad.
I'll do.
You're
going to fiddle with it.
I've got to open up the side bit there. That's all right. You carry on.
Okay. What was the question again?
As humans, are we fundamentally predisposed to?
Yeah, I think our brains are something our brains do really well is pattern recognition, and that's a sort of fundamental thing that human beings are good at. And it's actually to our detriment a lot of the time because we'll see patterns where there aren't any, and that can be quite destructive. It's certainly something that turns up an awful lot in some mental illnesses like schizophrenia and stuff like that, or paranoid delusions. Remember the story of John Nash? A Beautiful Mind. Russell Crowe played him, and he'd sort of created all these stories because he'd put together patterns in his mind that seemed to make sense, and then built these stories around them. This composition feels very familiar. Actually, hang on. No, I've changed my mind. I'm going back to the previous one. Come on, Graham, keep up.
That's all right. I got it in such a way now that it's about right.
Oh, that's okay, yeah. Sorry. Right.
See what I have to put up with, everybody. I can't work in these conditions.
Right. I've got this sort of obelisk. And there's going to be some lights down there. Yeah, this is quite familiar lighting, so I'm getting a bit of a deja vu about previous pictures here, but that's okay. There you are. And this will, I've got my little Stanley blade, which is going to go around here at the front somewhere. And yeah. There's some tonal stuff to be going on with.
You said this was your grandfather's tin, didn't you?
Yeah.
So was he and he's kept Stanley blades in it? Was he a bit of a handyman himself?
Well, he was an artist and a practical person, I suppose, much like I am.
So is this your the same grandfather that did the painting that's upstairs?
Yes.
Ah, cool.
Yeah, I never knew my other grandfather. Yeah, or grandmother, really. Yeah, that side of the family doesn't seem to live as long. One side's indestructible, the other lot sort of pop off in their 50s. So, yeah, so now's a good time to invest in my artwork, really, because I probably haven't got long. So, I'm all right with it, to be honest. I think I'm done. I think I've finished everything.
You've done what you need to do.
Yeah. I was looking on Netflix the other day. I thought, I can't be bothered. There's nothing left here I want to watch. So, you know,
It's the entire life.
there's
Life expectancy on the.
there's all
What can
these.
I watch on Netflix?
There's all these new books out, but I don't really know any of them, and it looks like a lot of bother, and they're probably rubbish. So yeah, I kind of feel like I've finished really. That is a genuine feeling. I'm sure lots of other people have too. I do get that a bit. I'm sure everyone does one day. Well, it's sort of a nice feeling in a way, because it means that you've when you're young and there's all this stuff you haven't done, you're trying to get out into the world and so frustrated being in a little town or whatever it might be. The idea that one day you'll go, yeah, well, I've already done that. It's a bit bored now. Is actually a crowning achievement, you know. I like the space around this. There's been a lot of space turning up in my paintings recently. A lot of room for quiet and detachment. I think that's because partly that's what I've been doing. The world is mental, and none of it makes much sense. So,
I just sort of wonder why there's a reason that you're painting on sort of white backgrounds at the moment.
yeah, I tend not to think about these things too much. There's been a lot of interesting.
It's more interesting because it's subconscious, so therefore there's something going on.
Oh, if I think about it, I'll definitely start mucking it up. It'll like have some deliberate meaning in it, or it will have some sort of deep message. And I do paintings that I feel like have that, but a lot of the time it's more that you do it and you discover what that is afterwards. So hopefully it is there. You know, but you can't. I don't think you can deliberately put it there. There's some kind of conscious act of this will mean this. Because even if you manage to achieve that for yourself, there's only one of you, and the rest of the world is not bound by your idea of what your great profound artwork means. It will make its own mind up, and it might be dramatically different to what you intended. And to a certain extent, you just sort of have to accept that, I think. You know, there's not a lot that's in your power when it comes down to these things. So if there's a collective mindset that this thing you've made means a certain thing, then in a way that's what it means. It's sort of not up to you anymore, which is frustrating as an artist sometimes, but actually it's also it's kind of nice. It's sort of revelatory when people see a thing in something you've made that you didn't even deliberately put there. You weren't even entirely aware of yourself. A lot of creative pursuits are really more about self-discovery than they are about telling everyone the clever thing that you know. And in that sense, they're, the act of, I often say the act of doing it is really the reward. Now I'm going to need some weak blues in this picture, so I will mix myself a weak blue. Got some violet there, I'll put that to one side. Might be useful later on. A load of mixing white in that. I will use this to add to the colour. There we are. Already slightly peachy. Yeah, a lot of mixing going on at this stage. I'm going to want a lot of grey too. Mix a nice pile of that. Again,
so you said about using a white which is very thick right at the start.
Yeah. So I like to use a mixing white. You can effectively make your own.
Can you define what a mixing white is?
Yeah, it's like it's a white paint, but it's got more filler and less pigment.
Okay.
So The white I generally use is a nice expensive one. It's Michael Harding's titanium white #1 in safflower oil. It's got the most enormous pigment load. You put a tiny dot into anything, it kind of risks bleaching it out. So saving that for the color mixes where there's bright highlights or a lot of intensity, it's nice to have different whites of different power. So what I could do is I could get that, and when I want a weaker white, I could add, chalk dust to it and that kind of thing. But it's almost easier to just buy a tube of what you need. Now,
Josie says hi, by the way.
hi Josie.
A little bit later this evening.
Coming on, yes, made a bit of a late start. Hey.
I didn't get anything to do with the name. No name call for me.
Oh right. Oh, you didn't get mentioned.
No.
Oh,
No,
bad luck,
not this
Graham.
evening. Not offended, Josie, at all.
I think you should be offended.
A little bit.
Be
All the
mortified
work
now.
I put in.
Now, this is a tricky one. I'm looking at the blue. There's a bit more green in it. The blue that's behind. Oh, this is very tricky to place, but I think I've landed it. There it is, somewhere around there. So the blue in the shadow is very deep, but I think that's probably okay, which means I can compare that to this. This can be lighter. So yeah, so I'm starting to find this family of colours. I've got a similar kind of thing that I'm going to want to see with the reds. If I start off with my bright red. Oh, I'm going to need some alizarin. Let's see if I can put some out without squeezing it all over my hand. Alright, here's some permanent rose. I'll use that instead. That'll be fine. Hey. Lovely. Okay, so I've got that bright red. I'll look for this dark that will go next to it. I'm still just using really high chroma colour. I'll probably make it slightly darker as well. Oh. There we go. And that's sort of the jump I see. All of these will probably have to be adjusted at some point, but in the meantime, what do we do for my blues? Yeah, we'll see, won't we? And while that blue's up, let's slightly bluish white. While I've got that, let's make a paler grey. Also slightly bluish. I'll get a few brushes and I'm just going to paste this in really rough. Yeah, see what it does.
Oh, bless. Jason. I just turned on and had thought it maybe wasn't happening, and then thought James sounded all alone and must be managing without you there, Graham. All good, Josie. I'm here.
It's too late for apologies. You should see his crestfallen little face. Oh.
It's a really beautiful way of putting it, actually. Crestfallen little face.
Yeah.
Much nicer than sobbing in the corner uncontrollably.
Yeah. No, as if I could cope without it. I have managed it, but it's usually a little bit inconsistent what I come up with. Right, go to my rays. Put some of those in. That's quite steep. Yeah. Now, I'm trying to make a judgment as to whether these are the tonal jumps I'm really seeing here. So this is they're pretty much level. Okay, and if that works. I think it does pretty much. Let's get a bigger brush for some of those background colours. At this very early stage, I will use a tiny bit of thinners just to get this paint spread out. We're seeing different types of white turning up here. Again, it's not an awful lot of paint going in, just enough to really
So what are your main focus points on this evening then?
well, the colours of the tin are going to be important. This Stanley blade is going to be quite important. I'm really liking the shapes of the negative spaces as they go around. So here, that's going to give me a nice little gap there. And it gets closed off. Give me a nice little gap there. That's the kind of thing that's happening there. Ish. Again, this paint isn't flowing, it's not particularly playing ball, but it doesn't need to at the moment because I'm just using it to sort of feel my way around where these negative shapes are. Once that's in, that's going to be shallower. I'm sort of learning to see the shapes and the spaces now. It's not the right brush to do those details with, that's okay. There's a surface that the next layer of paint will go into, so that it will become forgiving of it, if that makes sense. Same kind of thing behind here. Now, if I were to be really bold, I'd sort of mix up the colours and just put in one individual stroke for each bit, and I might yet do a bit of that. There you are. We can sort of see the forms already. I can pop in a few other bits and pieces. Like a very thin layer of this dark red, see if that. haven't put the white writing on yet, but that will come. A bit higher up. The excess off, put a bit of the bright red on, see what that does. This is just cabin red straight out of the tube, which generally I would never do, but I'm going to put a little bit of white in it now. That's not enough of a change, so that needs to be lighter and more orange. A little bit of candy yellow. Oh, it's got skin on it now. Over here, let's see what that does. Barely different. And am I losing that angle? I am. Angle needs to be going up, like this. Yeah, parallel with that. That's okay. And get another brush. I'll do it. Do some of those lighter blues, see if they work. A slightly thinner stripe. So hopefully, oh, that feels good. Yeah, and if I go to the darker colour. It sort of needs to be a similar relationship to the tonal change from the greys, but because there's a lot of colour, it's almost behaving a different rule. I'm not entirely sure about the shapes, so I'm just putting that in pretty rough at the moment. And yeah, put a bit of blue in there just as a placeholder. Oh yeah, let's go back to that light grey. Put a bit of that on there. Square this edge off. Yeah. Fairly different in the area just next to it, so I'll make that a lost edge. And then it lightens up. And it comes out. Same around here. A little bit darker in the middle. Oh. A bit too blue. Ah, I used the blue instead of the grey. No, that's wrong. Where else is it? Yeah, somewhere between the two. Little stripe of shadow there. Maybe a tiny bit on the edge of that Stanley blade. Okay, and then there's a lighter bit. Still too blue. That's going to have to get more peachy. And I haven't got enough of that kind of colour. I'm going to have to revisit that. Yeah, no point trying to finish it with this because that's not going to do it. Lights around the edges. But yeah, it's turning up already, isn't it?
I don't think so.
Well, I've got that light one on there. Let's soften down some of these edges as well. That one. Right at the bottom there. You get really fussy about it, but I'm not going to yet. I reckon my red and my blue can get brighter. I think I have to do a bit of scraping. Hang on, where am I going to put these? Ah, there we go. So I've got these little brush holders on my art trolley, and it's a great way of using a brush, putting it out of sight, and then leaving it there until it dries rock hard, and you go, damn it, I was meant to clean that. Really effective way of achieving that.
Either way, you get a new brush out of it, don't you?
Yeah.
You can use it again. Or...
Okay, I'm going to go back to this light colour, and I have got some of this orangey peachiness underneath. I'm going to mix a whole load of that. And there it is, same again. That's going to be useful, especially where it joins up with these greys. So I'll take an extra bit of the colour and some of the light, and let's put some of this grey in it and see what we end up with. It doesn't look that much lighter. Let's borrow a bit more. But that's the good thing about mixing whites. It doesn't have a huge pigment load, so you can do these quite subtle tonal movements, especially where you're adding dark, white to effectively darker colours. Now, if I get some of this, got this nice little edge here. These are the sorts of things, if I can get them in at the beginning, they will help out a painting later on. This looks like it's slightly greenish. We can also add a bit of that to, it comes into here a little bit. Kind of creeping into some of these shapes. A little bit up at the top. Oh, I've got this slightly purpley version here now. Right, now I'm getting into the, that's too much. Yeah, it's a bit more of a blue-grey. There you are. Ah, some other little hints of other colours here. Creeping into that. Yeah, because there's already paint on the surface, it's really been quite forgiving. Okay, so other things I can do while I have these greys. Make a slightly peachy one. And put in some of this lettering. And I'm going to have to reload the brush every time. It's just to hint at it, and I'll come back in with the red afterwards. There's the little hyphen. Get the little hyphen in. That was poorly done. Yeah, this needs to be more creamy coloured. No, it was alright before. Sort of looks like Band-Aid now, doesn't it? Let's get another small brush. Seems to be running out of good shape 6s. There we are. Only a fine line at the top, but it's there. Will be enough. Put in just to break it up. Lovely. And what else? I'll stop fiddling with it. Right, good. Give that a clean. Do the same kind of thing. That was my light colour, wasn't it? I'm going to mix together some of this bluish colour and this creamy colour, and I'm going to pop in a little bit of titanium white just to bleach it out a little bit. Now I've got some bright highlight colour. Now I've got that, I'll be able to do some other little bits and pieces, like hard edge to that at the top. Solid block of enamelled tin. Hard light line down the side. Reshaping this, working it in. Line there. Line here. There we are. Okay, that's getting a bit of personality to it now. I can also use this for the lettering. Might want to change that blue before I do. I'm not sure. Maybe I don't need to. Yeah, that's not too confusing. More block in the middle.
You find it quite difficult putting text on?
You've got to ignore the textness of it. That's the thing. So in some places, there's clear shapes to letters that you sort of can't ignore. They're as detailed as the corner of a lid or something like that. But when it comes to here, it's more like a stripe. But you can still make individual distinct marks. Further in than that, you're actually mixing a colour which is a sort of a mix between the two colours that are present, the colour of the text and the colour of the background that it's on. You just can't do detail, so actually you mix those two things together, and hopefully it delivers. Put a bit of extra green on there, brighten this up. There you are. That's a bit more like it. It's a subtle change, but it makes a difference. Covered in. Gotten the handle. I was doing so well. Not wearing gloves today. Should have done really, but there you go. Bit late now. Right, so yeah, so the writing of the washproof bit, come on. It's a fluff on the brush. Comes in about here, and that's just going to be a dry brush sort of mark. It's got to go in the right direction though. Wanders up a little bit here. And then the plasters, there's sort of individual blocks. It goes all the way up. Keep reloading that brush, top edge. It goes all the way to the end here. And there. Right, if I get back into the shadow and do the same thing here. Later on I can define the edges. So the interesting thing with text, especially sort of properly set text like this, and it's all capitals, so all the letters will be the same height. Although there will be a couple of little curves here and there. Actually, all the letters being the same height does more for you to register it as text than to than actually describing the letters. It's quite fun.
Josie says white and green and not white.
Oh, well, the blue was too close to the purple side, and the paint I had was already light enough, so that particular paint on the palette. So yeah, little hue shifts within with the changes from light to dark can sometimes do more to explain that change than so where there's more light on it, there's more yellowiness in the light, and because of that there's the blues go greener. So it's an interesting sort of little play around. Now I'm sort of jumping ahead here, but that's okay. I'm going to put some of this black in just because I need to know where this goes. That's going to be
T. Merck, do you know him?
I don't think so.
He says, I get a headache just imagining trying to fit text in perspective. Lol.
Yeah. Well, that's the perspective was already set by the lines. So, and again, I'm going back over the lines afterwards just to sort of fix it up. So I'm definitely cheating on that one. But there's no such thing as cheating, really. There's just figuring out what makes it work. Anything else? I think there's a bit of an extra bit on the end of here. I'm going to make it a bit grayer as well, and up here as well. And that's probably enough of that. Something I haven't done yet. I haven't done the yellow. I'm actually going to start with the darker yellow, the shadow yellow. I'm going to borrow a little bit of this shadow colour. I'm going to put it into some yellow ochre. It's going to give me that green. I'll put a bit of red in it to warm it up. And I'll pop that in here and see if that won't be too dark. I think it is a little bit. I'll lighten it slightly. Tiny bit of cadmium just to give it a bit of a boost. Still going to be a dark colour. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure they don't sell Stanley blades in packets like this anymore. Don't know when they did, but my grandfather used to keep stuff forever. He wasn't sort of tidy and organised like me, who wouldn't dream of hoarding something because it might be useful one day. He just couldn't help himself, poor man. Must have been awful. Don't know what it must be like to be like that. But there you go. So, no, actually, obviously I'm joking because there's a similarity with a lot of arty people. You look at anything and you go, well, that would be handy if I were in this unusual situation and needed a roll of that cumbersome material that you'd hardly ever use. So I'd better not throw it away. And then yeah. Actually, in later years, he was pretty organised. I suppose I'm pretty organised. You wouldn't have any clue that I have quite as much junk as I really do from looking around. You'd go, wow, you've got a lot of junk, but really you've got no idea. It's so much worse than you think, which is a testament, I think, to just how organised I am. I managed to hide so much of it from plain view.
A lot of it's hidden in plain sight, though, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I guess so. This yellow is really what's going to finish this off. And this is sort of simple little, it's sort of the cardboardy language is showing up here just by these simple little flat slabs of paint. You can still see what's underneath coming through a little bit. That's okay. And there's just a bit right along the edge. Give me an edge there. And that'll do. That says everything I need it to say. Other things. Let's go back to this brown for a moment. So I'm making.
Interesting that you took sort of like such a short space of time to do that yellow, considering being the kind of colour that's going to most stick out on the painting.
Yeah, but it's a really simple shape. It doesn't need to be overcomplicated and fiddled with. And the more you fiddle, the more that would actually take away from it. So here, so there's other little bits like a bit of a reflection of that brown in the Stanley knife. The Stanley blade will turn up by the reflections and the other colours that are in it. And anything else I've forgotten here? There's a bright lemony greeny yellow. It's sort of a relative of this one. See how much I can get away with. Just up here. Just catching the light at the top. That's not enough. There, that's it. What I wanted. Anything else need that? No, that's fine. I've got that dark, so I'm going to go around and do some other deeper shadows. I'm doing all this with one brush. It's not the way to do it. Oh, I've already got the shadow brush in my hand. Here we are. Let's go back to my dark grey. Let's say there's a dark shape there. There's a dark shape under here. Don't even need to do fine tiny little details. The sort of folded bit of box in the corner. A little bit under there. Actually a sort of a hard line of shadow there. I do quite like, so I'm going to put it in. While I've got that dark on, there's also the rest of this Stanley blade, which is going to have a shape like that. There's lights to go in it later on, but not much. Yeah, I've already put that shadow underneath the corner. And let's have a bit of that bright blue turning up as well. and maybe a few of those lighter reflections of the lettering and things. There you are, a little hint of that. So the last bit I'll get done. Hang on, no, there's a few. So while I get lighter with this, I'm going to go into my creamier colour somewhere from the brown. It's nowhere near as light as the background. And then there's, oh, hang on. This shape here. I did that twice and I didn't need to. Try that again.
T. Merck has said, is it phthalo green?
Oh no, well, I'm using ultramarine and tipping it towards the green with Viridian. And if you mix those two together, you'll get the same colour as phthalo green or Prussian blue, which is very similar. So yeah.
Just phthalo green?
Yes.
Okay. Silent P.
There's lots of names of paints that no one knows how to pronounce because they've only ever read them on the side of a paint tube. And so for the longest time I just called it potato green in my head because it was
brilliant. It's like when you're reading in a book and the main character's name is a bit difficult to sort of put your head around, so forevermore they're just blah, blah, blah.
Now if you've ever tried to read Tolstoy or Dostoevsky, it's just all these names in there and you go, well, I'm not going to bother with that. You shorten it to this, it's not even a word, it's just the shape of the shape. It's not a sound, it's the shape of a word. And so
I'm glad I'm not the only one that does that.
So we as artists, we take it in turns to harbour our own bizarre mispronunciation of a pigment colour. But there's and in a sense, some people, when they talk about pigments, there's lots of stories. One of the most famous pigments is lapis lazuli, and some people call it lapis lazuli, and no one corrects anybody because no one really knows which the one's the main one.
But I suppose if you're pronouncing it and in the right sort of circle of people, everybody's going to know what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I said potato blue, people would maybe sort of pick me up on that, but they'd also know I was just sort of,
that's one of the artist's sort of jokes.
They'd know I'd copped out, and they'd respect that decision. In a way, going, yeah, I know why you can't be bothered with that. Neither can I. Because the colour is more important than the name of it, and it's an interesting thing with colours. There's when naming colours, because a lot of the time when people are talking about colours, they'll name a colour with a what would you call it? The thing that it's the colour of. Does that make sense? Like if you've asked me before, like what my favourite colour is, and I always like to say heliotrope because it sounds really funny. Yeah. It is a lovely colour as well. But the heliotrope is a flower, as the name suggests. In Greek, helio is helios, and trope is in follows. It follows the sun, and it's a flower that follows the sun round as it goes by in the sky. And it's a lovely pink colour, and it's fun to say, and it also turns up in Dr. Seuss somewhere. If anyone wants to quote that, we'll be very grateful to have that input. Normally it's Graham's job to Google things, but he's become increasingly lazy, so we appreciate your assistance. If you want to chip in. There you go. But saying blue or red, it's not the name of a thing. The only peculiar one is orange, which is the name of the colour and of a thing. A lot of the time, people, especially with beiges, people say, "Oh, it's camel," or whatever. The best example is khaki, of course, because that means something. And no one really registers what it is. They just go, yeah, it's sort of a greeny brown colour, and they go, yeah, that's what it means. Okay, I can make this a bit brighter now and a little bit cooler. I'll borrow a bit of that, a little bit of that blue colour. Now, here's an example of making whites whiter by putting colour in them. I've got a bit of variation in it now. It'll be coming from up here somewhere. Nice. Happy with that. Oh, did I go too close with my Stanley blade? I think I'm okay. Yeah, so the names of pigments are interesting, but it's not how I think about colour. I find it a bit distracting, so I sort of try and ignore it. Right, there's these two little notches in this Stanley blade, which will absolutely describe what it is for those who know. They just need to be visible enough. Yeah, pretty good. And along here. Now this is a slightly cooler white, but still not completely white. So I'll go back to the warmer one here, and I'll put a few warmer bits in as it moves away. And this slight change in colour will actually make it feel more like, make it feel more white. How's that working? What are you looking at, Graham? What are you looking up?
No, it wasn't at that particular moment.
Ah, all right. Okay, other things that are going to make a difference. Right. Here's where I want the change. So that's going to come out there. We go out there and stop. Yeah, that'll do for that. A bit of that in there. A little bit here, so it sort of wanders in. I'll get onto the blues in a minute, but yeah, I think this works pretty well. Yeah, go back to the warmer colours. Yeah, I like the way that breaks up there. I'll put a few of these blues in, especially in places where it sort of cools down, like around here. It also brightens it up a bit. This extra cold light. A few bits around there. Now I can go brighter again. And now I'm going to the titanium white. I'm still mixing it. I can really up that side of my tin. And lay it on a bit thicker as well. A bit along here. Nice. It becomes that bit more present. Oh, there. Great. Definitely a kind of edge there. that's enough. Anything else get really bright? Don't think so. The Stanley blade is too dark. I think I need, one of these greys in between. Is this a grey brush? A yellow brush. This is a grey brush, I believe. There it is. Did I dry it enough? Okay. See what that does. A little bit of softness. Maybe it won't hurt. I think I can go even lighter than that. Yeah, that's pretty good. Last bits with the yellow. Do a slightly lighter version of this. Just along there. Piece of paper looks like chewing gum now, but there you go. Other things, definitely need another brush. A smaller brush. Go back to this grey. And that. Other bits of writing in there. Anything else? Anything else that's jumping out? I think other than that, this is pretty close to being.
Really has been a speed sort of painting this evening. An hour.
Yeah, good. Last few bits. Nah. Not quite in the right place. Oh, that's okay. Maybe a little bit. I'm trying to be too many details now. I think I should stop there. There's one last bit, which is along the bottom. It's the manufacturers. Anything else?
Things just don't really come in tins anymore, do they? Unless it's food.
Yeah, I think a reclosable tin is something. If you think how many of these things must have gone to landfill. At the same time, these days, I really think there's a lot of things we should bring back. Wax paper.
Yeah. A friend of mine collects the tins of bike puncture repair kits.
Oh right, yeah.
He's got like 50 of them, I think. It's really quite impressive.
Bit of light on that. Okay, now I'm definitely fiddling. I'm not done fiddling. A bit more fiddling to do. That top edge does seem important. Actually, it's all right. Just change the direction. All right. Now there's a few little bits. Some of that yellow. Make it a bit grey. This. So I've got some of the bits on the Stanley box.
Now here's a question for you. Do you think that you fiddle with the paintings towards the end on these live streams because you feel that, especially with this one only being an hour long, you haven't had it enough in?
No,
do it?
no. It's more that I like to know. It's a similar sensation to scooping the last of the Nutella out of the jar. At a certain point, it's more work than reward. But you know there's some left, and you don't want to feel like you missed out on it.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
And so I am getting pleasure from digging into this and figuring out what it can give me. And as a result, it's sort of, and it will keep delivering. And at a certain point, it will stop, and that will usually be about 5 minutes after I ought to have stopped painting. I'm also having a bit of a sort of a reset, standing back, having to think about how it looks. I think I don't think that's going any further. I think that's done. And I think a nice bit of crimson to sign it with. Sign it nice and small. Hey, well, thank you for joining me. And I hope that's been entertaining, fun and edifying. And now I've got a rather amusing little what would you call it? Not comparison. Oh, well, I can't even think of words anymore. This is worrying. When two things complement one another, but also contrast. It's a little bit of irony almost, but it's not an irony. Something like that. Yeah, the Stanley blade in the empty band-aids. When you're definitely going to want to know where the plasters are, you've got a tin that says plasters. It's got no plasters in it. It's just got more of the things that just cut you. Something I quite like that. Something amusing about that. So yeah, thanks very much. That's short and sweet. I will pop that in the Bean Shop Cafe tomorrow, and you can come and have a look. There were qualities in this that I didn't do, like for example, it's still got bits of like tape and stuff on the front, like the old label. I could put that in. Could put that old peeling label in. Shall I do that? Do you think it?
On which bit?
There's the old peeling label here on the front.
Personally, I don't think so.
No, I don't think
it's one of those sort of like artistic licenses that you've got that you've left it out.
Yeah, and it's not really about that. Sometimes
it is about the tin of plasters, and you've captured that really well.
Sometimes, a door with peeling paint. The peeling paint's more important than the door. But with this, it's very much more about the plaster tin. Fun. Well, thank you for coming along.
Josie says, great, quirky.
Yeah, that's what you'd expect from me, isn't it? I'll do something normal one day. I think I do manage little bits of normal, don't I?
At which point we'd then all check in and just say, James, okay.
Yeah,
Painted something that was relatively normal.
Yeah. I suppose the flowers were a bit like that, but even then I couldn't help
But
it.
I think the flowers became an obsession.
Yeah.
Which then wasn't normal.
It was a problem I was trying to solve, and they weren't done like conventional flower pictures, all of them. But when they were, I hated them. So that's how that works. Super. Thanks for coming, and tell your friends or something, or don't. I don't care. And
like and subscribe.
Yes, we don't really do that here, do we?
No, we don't.
It's not really what it's about. I am going to put some more edited videos out, and those I might actually do, try editing them properly and promoting them. But it's so much work, and I just don't care. And it's not what I'm doing it for. And those that know, those that put in the effort, can find what I've done and hopefully pick something good out of it. Come along next time. Any suggestions are welcome.
Yep.
Leave a comment somewhere, and thanks for coming.
Perfect.